Only one place to start, really. Mo Salah. What did we make of Mo Salah's day, Jackie, at Anfield yesterday? The Sunday Telegraph, Salah's farewell for now.
Yep, for now. We don't know. I don't think the manager knows. I can understand the headlines saying that he will be back. The answer that Slot gave was that, well, he's a Liverpool player. So I think he deserves a huge amount of credit, Slot, for all this, because he clearly won't have enjoyed or liked what happened. And he's had to show a lot of leadership by calming it down. I think the fans deserve credit as well for not particularly taking one side or another, certainly not turning against the manager. And he's calmed it down to the extent that he was capable of coming on yesterday, receiving warm applause from the supporters, having an impact, of course, with his corner for Ekitike's second goal, and leaving things pretty calm for Salah to then go to the Africa Cup of Nations. And then if a deal can be done with, say, Saudi Arabia and he goes, then he's had his moment of farewell. And if he doesn't, he's left the door open for him to come back and resume. So I think Slot's handled it really well. Credit to the supporters as well. But I was watching this channel yesterday when Salah walked into the stadium, and the guys, Paul Merson, etc., was having a great ding-dong with Clinton Morrison about how he walked in as if he'd just been slapped around the chops with a wet fish, and he wasn't very happy with life. And they were arguing about his demeanour, and really, is this the demeanour of somebody who wants to be here? And, OK, credit to him for coming on and having an impact. But his demeanour was very much in question ahead of that game. I don't know if you get to see that clip again or if it'll be played again today.
Well, that is the question.
It wasn't very positive.
Yeah, Mr. Sam Dean, the Sunday Times, is this goodbye? Is this goodbye, Sam? Do you think you'll feature in a Liverpool shirt again?
My instinct and feeling is that this is goodbye now. And I think that's partly because him playing yesterday, or at least being in the squad and then coming off the bench, was a really sensible outcome that kind of suited all parties, because Slot needed him, partly because of injuries in attack and also because the form has been so bad in the league. He needed Salah, and Salah needed to say goodbye, as he said he wanted to last week. If Salah didn't get that chance, it would have been him. He would have gone out in a very sort of disgraced way, wouldn't he, if he is to leave? So this felt to me like a very sensible short-term plaster over the problem, but I really would be quite surprised now if Slot doesn't long-term, or the club don't long-term kind of lay down the law for what Salah did. And I look back at sort of my own journalistic, sort of what I've covered in the last few years, and I remember at Arsenal, Mikel Arteta and Mesut Ozil and Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, and when these players challenge managers, generally it doesn't repair itself. You have to find a solution with one of them goes. And I think Salah made his play, and it felt to me like he was trying to get Slot sacked when he spoke after Leeds. Obviously, I think he's realised that's not going to happen. I still think a departure is the most likely outcome, and yesterday was a short-term fix to make everyone happy for a day or two before the bigger issue gets resolved next month.
I think the big question, which we don't know the answer to at this point, is the other side of the market, right? It's who is willing to buy out his big Liverpool contract. Is that going to be a team in Saudi Arabia in the January transfer window? I'm sure that if such a team were to come through with a lot of money on the table, it would make sense for everyone for him to go. I think, even putting aside his comments after the Leeds game, the fact is he hasn't started Liverpool's last 5 games, and Liverpool haven't lost any of those 5. Whereas their 3 games before then, which Salah all started, they lost all of them. So they not only are they, I think, a better team right now without him, but certainly in terms of their future planning for next season and beyond, I don't think he is part of those plans, and I think whereas the people who we do know are part of the plans are Ekitike, Wirtz, and Isak. Like, they're the guys who really need to make a success of this season, and therefore I think that if somebody comes to the table with proper money for Salah in January, it would be very surprising if Liverpool were to try and keep hold of him for the rest of this season or beyond that.
But Slot is defiant. You know, the Mail reporting and going with the headline, Mo will be back. Slot expects Salah to return after international duty. Is that not just from
his answer when he's asked, will he be back? He's not going to say, well, no, because no deal has been done for him to go to Saudi Arabia or anywhere else. But the way he said it on the broadcast interview I saw was when he was asked, well, will he be back? And he said, well, he's a Liverpool player, so yes, he'll be back. That's not emphatic, is it? That's more a case of that's what he has to say. And that's why I think he's handled it so well, because it's not just about him and his relationship with a player who he's probably privately fuming about. He has to manage the situation because the guy signed a 2-year contract worth, what, about 400 grand a week? Something. And he said in April when he signed it, it was partly because of the manager and the fantastic relationship he has with him, and his wife and 2 daughters are so happy on Merseyside. He signed that, but his stats alone this season, from the first 12 games of the Premier League season that he started, 4 goals and 2 assists. And in the first 12 Premier League games of last season, 10 goals and 6 assists. That's 10 more goal involvements he had last season from the same number of games that he started. He's not been the same positive influence he was last season. He cannot demand to start games. And what's best for Liverpool is the most important thing here. And so that's why I agree with you guys about him potentially moving on in January. But I think it's been handled well by Slot.
What fascinates me about this story, it has been massively divisive in terms of, you mentioned Paul Merson, but Paul Merson sort of sticking up for Mo Salah's side of things. Jamie Carragher, the complete opposite. What have you made, Sam, of the way that Salah in particular has gone about dealing with the situation in the build-up to the Brighton game?
Yeah, well, so much was made of that contract he signed and how people really kind of felt like it should be a reward for his performances last season. But contracts aren't a reward, they're a projection of future performance. And the argument that he deserved a new deal because of what he did in the past, for me, never really cut it. And the fact that it's 6 months down the line and he's now struggling, I think kind of proves why there might have been some reservations within Liverpool, given his age. And we know, obviously he's a great player, no one's doubting that, but we know that players in that position especially can drop off quite quickly. And it looks to me this season that he's lost a lot of the form and sharpness that defined the previous year for Liverpool. And I think now, if it sounds crazy to say, you can't imagine saying this 6 months ago, but if you lined up 100 Liverpool fans and said, would you be happy for Salah to leave and Liverpool to buy Antoine Semenyo, for example, which I think is entirely possible in January.
Who has the release clause of 65 million?
It seems like it's there to be done if Liverpool want to do it. If you ask Liverpool fans, would you want that now? I think the majority would say yes, get rid of Salah, which is extraordinary. You think about what he did last year, but that's how quickly football moves.
I think that's a little bit unfair on Salah in the sense that the Liverpool team last season was basically, it was like a platform which was built for Salah to be brilliant. Like, Salah was the best player, and they had, like, everything that they did was geared around getting him to maximise his talents. In that sense, it reminded me a little bit of the Argentina team with Lionel Messi at the heart of it, and you've got everybody's there. Everybody is there to do a job to help the best player play his best. But there's been so much change this season, over the summer, and they've brought in all these new guys. Suddenly, that platform doesn't exist anymore. They don't have Alexander-Arnold, they don't have Diaz, they don't have Nunes, they don't have Jota under tragic different circumstances. And they've suddenly got these 3 new signings in, all of whom want to be the main man, right? Like, they've spent lots of money on these guys, and they want to be the ones who are getting the goals and assists on the pitch. And all of a sudden, even though Salah has got this fantastic big new contract, his status at the team and his importance in the team has actually really changed. And I just wonder if it's that change in status that he finds it really hard to adjust to, rather than simply like a footballing reason why he's playing worse.
Would that not be a failing on his part, though, as a leader of the squad, as someone who gets paid a reported £25 million a year? His job, surely, at his age as well, is to adapt to the changing world at Liverpool and to evolve with the team and the squad.
I would say it's even more of a failing of the people who run Liverpool, in the sense that at the same time, they both gave him this fantastic big new contract and also transformed his status within the group. It strikes me as a very, very muddled planning to end up in that position.
In fairness to them as well, though, do you remember at the time, he doesn't give many interviews, does he? But when he does, it's because he's got a point to make about himself, and he wanted that new contract, and he came out in a rare interview and said, no, the club haven't sorted a contract with me. There was a huge amount of pressure from the fans, and as we know, it's one of the most passionate fan bases. I'm certainly not blaming the fans for this, but you just remember at the time, what he had done led to the theory that he was worth shelling out that 2-year contract for a player approaching his mid-30s, which was a lot of money. Doesn't mean to say they're right, but in fairness to the hierarchy at Liverpool, there was a huge amount of pressure from everybody. He deserves this, he's the main man, X, Y and Z. So had they not done that and just say this season hadn't started so well, the amount of pressure on them and on Slot would have been almost unbearable, saying, well, why on earth didn't you give Salah that contract that he deserved?
But also, having that contract at least protects his value. If he does go in January, you'd assume they'd get a decent transfer fee for him. If he went in the summer, they would have got nothing. So, yes, it's cost them 6 months' wages, but I don't think they'll regret giving him that contract in that sense.
Can you guys see Salah accepting in any capacity, sitting on the bench? Because Jack's already nodding his head and saying no. But do you know what I mean? Going forward, that conversation would have had to involve, where do you see me over these next 20-odd Premier League games and playing in the Champions League? Is this going to be more common, me sitting around on the bench? Whereas essentially what I'm trying to say is, are we just fast-forwarding the situation which was going to play out in the summer to the January transfer window? You know, was he always going to go in the summer, even though he's got this 2-year contract? And now actually it might be, as you said, Jack, in the best for all parties, that he goes to Saudi in the summer. They get a Semenyo or someone like that in Jan.
Well, I think he's made it. He could not have made it any clearer that he does not want to sit on the bench and does not think it's appropriate for him to sit on the bench. I just think that puts Liverpool in a difficult position, right? Because any club who's trying to move on a very, very big name player often runs into these problems. It was the same it's kind of similar when Cristiano Ronaldo went back to Manchester United. And then as soon as Ten Hag decided that I'm not really having him, it became like the dominant story at Manchester United, which dominated everything they did for I don't know, 6 or 12 months before he finally left. And these situations are very hard. And that's why, I do have a lot of sympathy with Salah, with Slot, even to an extent with the Liverpool hierarchy, because I accept Jackie's point that it would have been very politically difficult for them not to give him a contract after all those goals and the Premier League title and everything last season. So these things are very hard to manage, but my sense is it's probably best for Liverpool to grasp the nettle in January if they can and move him on and then get on with the new era.
Will Saudi be his only option, do you think? We're only talking about Saudi. Will there not be other European major clubs who would come in for him, even in January?
Wow, for that amount of money?
I think at those wages, it feels to me like Saudi's the only place. But that's not to say that Salah wouldn't be happy taking a pay cut to play for somewhere else. I think, there'll be loads of European clubs who want Salah. I just don't think there'll be loads of European clubs who want Salah at his current salary level. So that might require him to take a cut. But for me, Saudi seems inevitable.
So come on, look, down the line. Do we see him in a Liverpool shirt again, Jackie?
No, but it does depend very much on the offer. You can't just say, well, he's going to go. There has to be the right deal in place. But just one final point on it. What about professionalism? You're signing a player on a 2-year contract on around £400,000 a week or whatever. Yes, he's been fantastic for the club, and that's amazing. But this is Liverpool Football Club. This is an enormous football club. It has to be about what's best for them. How can it be about this one player who's been outstanding for the last few years? He didn't donate his time for free. He was handsomely paid while he was doing that. He enjoyed all the adulation of the supporters. What about putting professionalism first, whether you're at the lowest rung of the ladder or the top rung of the ladder? Professionalism should come first, and then the rest should flow from there.
Stay or go?
I think he'll go.
I'd be surprised if he plays for them again.
All right, let's get straight into it. We're doing a deep dive into the really complex situation around Mohamed Salah at Liverpool.
Yeah.
We're looking at the drama, the pretty undeniable drop in his performance, and what all our sources are calling this major contract paradox right at the heart of the club.
And the immediate scene is just pure tension. I mean, you've got that Sunday Telegraph headline, Salah's farewell for now.
Right. And that's sitting right next to the manager, Slot, making this, very public statement.
The mandatory one, saying Salah is a Liverpool player and he'll be back.
Yeah.
But the feeling from everyone we've spoken to is that there was no real conviction there.
He was just saying what he had to say.
Exactly. Just managing a really difficult public situation.
And that tension was, I think, perfectly captured before the Brighton match. The way he walked into the stadium.
Oh, yeah.
Analysts were all over it. He just looked so dejected. And he came on and got the corner for Ekitike's goal. But that whole appearance felt like a temporary fix.
It was a sensible, short-term plaster, make sure he has a clean moment before he potentially heads off for the Africa Cup of Nations. But the real issue, the thing driving all this, is his performance.
The numbers are just impossible to argue with.
They really are.
This season, in his first 12 Premier League starts, you're looking at 4 goals and 2 assists. That's it, 6 goal involvement.
And last season?
Last season, same number starts, he had 10 goals and 6 assists.
Wow. So that's a difference of 10 goal involvements. He's just not having the same impact. Not even close.
But what's really fascinating here is the counter-narrative that's starting to emerge about the team dynamic.
Right. This is the tricky part. Liverpool lost all 3 of the previous games he started.
And in the last 5 games, he didn't start.
They haven't lost a single one.
Hang on, though. Is that correlation or is that causation? I mean, that's a pretty small sample size. Couldn't it have just been a tough run of games?
Oh, absolutely. It's a mix of factors, for sure. But it's created this internal argument, this idea that Liverpool might actually be a more fluid, better balanced team without him at the moment.
And that just feeds right into this central paradox, doesn't it? The contract.
The big one. The club gives him this massive 2-year deal, reportedly £400,000 a week, partly to, appease the fans and reward him for what he's done.
But at the exact same time, they're completely transforming the squad around him. They're signing these new, expensive players like Wits and Isak guys who are clearly bought to be the next main men.
It's like they gave him the money, but then immediately started taking away the structure that made him the undisputed star. And that kind of situation is so hard to repair.
Yeah, once a player of that status challenges a manager, it almost never ends well.
Look at the Arteta situations with Ozil and Aubameyang. Once that trust is broken over playing time and status, the relationship just becomes terminal. And Salah's comments after the Leeds game.
It felt like he was trying to get Slot sacked.
It really did. It pushed things past the point of no return.
So if it can't be repaired, what's the way out? What are the logistics of an exit?
A January departure seems like the most probable outcome, but only if, and this is the big if, proper money comes in to buy out that huge contract.
And given his salary, we're basically just talking about Saudi Arabia, aren't we?
It's the only realistic sole destination, yeah. Unless he decides to take a massive pay cut to join another European club.
And what about his professionalism in all this? Our sources are saying he's made it clear he won't accept a role on the bench.
And for a player reportedly on £25 million a year, the view is that's, well, it's a failure of professionalism.
Because your job is to adapt.
Exactly. Your job is to adapt to the changing world at Liverpool, even if you are a club legend. Slot, no matter how furious he might be behind the scenes, had to handle him with extreme care.
So to wrap it all up, what does this all mean? The big tension is the club felt they had to give him that contract to protect his transfer value.
Right. But by doing that and then also transforming the team, they just accelerated the split that was probably necessary anyway.
Which leaves you with one final kind of provocative thought to chew on as the January window gets closer.
Yeah, think about this. If that massive contract did its job, if it protected his value for a big money sale in January, and that sale allows Liverpool to go out and buy a replacement like Antoine Semenyo, who has a reported £65 million release clause.
Then does that mean the muddled planning actually somehow delivered the best possible financial and, I guess, structural outcome for the club in the long run?